Good morning, everyone.
Good morning, everyone.
Saturday, October 25, 2025. Yes, it is a Saturday. Yes, it is a Saturday. Still here. And we are still here. The ministers are still here. We've been doing every day since Wednesday. And we will not stop providing information to the public. Our Prime Minister has been very clear that it is important that we continue to communicate to Jamaica. And so we're here. We will be here throughout the storm. We'll be here providing the information that all of Jamaica needs. Rest assured, all of your ministers are working. They are working really hard to ensure that the entire government apparatus is ready for this storm. And so this morning, we have some ministers here with us. Obviously, we have the key person responsible for coordinating everything, which is the Honorable Desmond McKenzie, or Minister of Local Government and Community Development. We also have Minister Vaz here with us, who's going to give you some very critical updates. We also have Minister Matthew Samuda with us, and we will also have Minister Floyd Green. We have our reps from ODPEM 2 and Met Service will be coming up shortly to give you an update on where this storm is. I know there's a lot of fatigue. This morning I had one person call and say that they're just suffering from a lot of anxiety, because usually we know a hurricane comes after a few days. You know, you see the hurricane. We've seen this hurricane just linger. And so I know there's a lot of stress. And so we say to you, listen to these ministers, listen to the officials, and we are giving you the best information we can so that you and your family can be safe. And so we're going to start with Minister Vaz this morning, who's giving you some critical updates.
Good morning, Jamaica. Not sure how good the morning is, but we are here alive and well, so we give God thanks. So everything else remains based on the two last updates that I gave yesterday and the day before, save and except for 4 areas of my portfolio responsibility. Let me start with the airports. It is very important that persons know so that they can plan. So we'd have indicated this morning that both the Norman Manley International Airport and the Sangster International Airport in Montego Bay would remain open for today's scheduled flights. Subsequent to that, I've had a conversation with airports authorities before coming here, and a decision has been taken to close Norman Manley International Airport after the last flight that is scheduled to arrive in Jamaica at 8 p.m. tonight. So let me say that we would categorize it as 8 p.m. or the last arriving flight. So if the flight is delayed for any reason, it will be accommodated, but all flights will be accommodated today at both Norman Manley International Airport and Sangster International. So my recommendation for those of you who want to get back to Jamaica or to get out of Jamaica, try and change your arrangements to get out today, meaning Saturday. We will have a meeting at 2 p.m. today to discuss the closure of the Sangster International Airport, MBJ. So we will advise you after the 2 o'clock meeting today as to the closing time for that. This is important for many reasons, both for our locals to get in and get out, but also for our tourism industry. So as we speak now, they are trying, the hotels are in communication through the Ministry of Tourism to communicate with the airlines to make sure that they increase their capacity loads in terms of the different planes and configurations to try and get out as many of those that are vacationing in Jamaica and want to get out, obviously, before the storm or the hurricane. So that in itself will bring clarity, and I hope that this message will go out far and wide. The next one is for JPS, and I have an update that I received minutes ago that I will share with you. At 9 o'clock this morning, there were 275 customers without electricity, broken down as follows: 95 customers in the west, 40 in central Jamaica, and 140 in eastern Jamaica. There are no widespread outages at this time. Each outage addresses on average 2 customers. The major cause of outages are trees on lines due to the high soil saturation levels. Approximately 550 persons are positioned and responding. This includes JPS employees, local contractors, and overseas line workers, for which I can confirm that 71 are actually in Ireland as we speak, which is a big difference from Hurricane Beryl. There are no major incidents currently on the electricity system. System is stable and JPS has been responding accordingly. So, as of right now, we have a stable electricity supply, and basically the number of outages as we speak on the eve of a storm or a hurricane is actually lower than when we are not in this mode. So I'll keep the country updated fully on that. The toll, we are waiting and expecting to give a directive to open the toll booths closer to the time of the storm or the hurricane. As of right now, the buildup is not bad. We are monitoring it, and I have already signed an order that just needs to be dated so that it can be effected immediately. So once we see it, and I suspect probably closer to Monday, with the big impact coming between Monday night and Tuesday, that would when the necessity would arise. But more importantly, I'm also giving a directive that once the storm or the hurricane passes, that we open the toll for emergency services and, of course, other persons who want to go to check on their family, their businesses, etc. So we have a pre and a post plan for toll. JUTC is on standby in collaboration with ODPEM and the police to assist with evacuations, and I suspect the evacuations will become more and more necessary as the weather event gets closer and closer. So I can say that that also is in place. So as it relates to the telcos and Petrojam and all the other reports I gave in the days recently, all remain on standby. Everybody is in ready position. And the only thing that I would say before closing is to make an appeal to all Jamaicans. Do not take this lightly. It is coincidental that we had 37 years between Charlie and Gilbert, and 37 years exactly between Gilbert and Melissa. Those of us who are around for Gilbert know exactly what, but there's many that did not experience it. So I'm saying to you, safety is priority, and being smart helps a lot. Don't make foolish decisions. Don't make stupid decisions, like coming out in the middle of the storm to see what's happening. Please, I'm making a special appeal because we are in a very, very serious time over this next few days, and we need all Jamaica to band together, and most importantly, prayers up, up, up for every single Jamaican and Jamaica, land we love. God bless Jamaica.
Thank you very much, Minister Vaz. We're now going to have what I know most people have tuned in for, which is the forecast from none other than Evan Thompson, and he'll be followed by his minister, Minister Samuda. Evan, we're all stressed out. Please come and tell us what is going on and when we will expect rain, when we'll get wind, when this hurricane or tropical storm will start affecting the country. So please welcome Evan Thompson, who the entire country is waiting for.
Thank Thank you very much, Minister, and very good morning to everyone. It has been a long few days and lots of activity, and of course now we're faced by the information of a tropical storm that's rapidly developing and moving closer and closer to Jamaica. The latest bulletin that was issued this morning would have been bulletin number 29 that was issued at 11 o'clock. And just to give you an idea of some of the information that is there, while I'm hoping that we will be able to show a few slides, some images that I captured. The latest position was at 16.5 north and 75.1 west. Now that means that the system still has not moved very much. The movement has still only been about 2 miles per hour. And that has been the situation for the past 24 hours. No significant movement. There has been some strengthening, however, where the system has actually moved from a storm at wind speeds of 45 kilometers per hour to 60 to 65, and now reaching 110 kilometers per hour. At 119 kilometers per hour, it would be classified as a hurricane. So it is really on the brink of becoming a hurricane, moving still toward Jamaica. The expectation, well, the system is currently moving toward the northwest, and that is or west-northwest, and that is at just 1 mile per hour. And it is packing winds, as I said, of 110 kilometers per hour. Now that system is expected to continue moving toward the west-northwest. You would see one image here that gives you an idea of what the mass of clouds associated with the system look like. And if you look into that black area, at the center of the black, almost a circle, you'll see where the eye of the system is located. Very little movement, but it is drifting closer to the island of Jamaica, the eastern part of Jamaica, that's moving toward the northwest at only 1 mile or 2 miles per hour. Now it's expected to continue that motion throughout much of today, and then it is going to be moving toward the west, to move westward along the southern. Let me move to something that will show you a little bit more. There we go. If we take a look at this, it might be a bit small for you, but those black circles indicate the position of the system in the projected track. So it's expected to move toward the west, and when it is south of Jamaica, south of Clarendon in particular, it's expected to start moving toward the north. At that time, it is expected to be, all this time it is expected to be a major hurricane, because what we're expecting after today is that there will be rapid intensification of this system. That's a phase that some of these hurricanes go through, especially in these days of climate change. We find that this rapid intensification is becoming much more frequent, where there is a period where they just jump from one category to the next in just a couple of hours. So this is what we are expecting to occur with Tropical Storm Melissa, soon to become Hurricane Melissa, and it will continue to move toward the southern coastline of Jamaica. It should make impact with the coastline by Tuesday morning. Today is Saturday morning, so we have about 3 days of movement. During this period, we will be experiencing quite a bit of rainfall, because the rains are expected to begin any time now. You would have experienced some brief showers already, but because of that cloud mass that you would see on the earlier image, I'll show you this one in a little while. Well, we can take a look at this closer one. You'll see that we are basically starting to experience the rainfall, Jamaica to the western side, the left side of the image. So the system will continue to advance closer to us. So we'll be into more of the oranges and the darker shades going into the black as we move through this weekend. So much of that rainfall will be moving across Jamaica, and that, of course, will be producing significant flooding over sections of the country. That is what would be expected with this amount of rainfall. The projection, I'll show you this chart, which shows us in that pink area. This is where the rainfall is expected what it's expected to look like, where the rain is concerned. And we're seeing that in the chart to the right, it shows 20 to 30 inches of rainfall. This is really an estimate, a better guide actually suggests that it will be more like 15 to 25 millimeters, 15 to 25 inches of rainfall that will move across Jamaica over the next few days. That is significant. When we have 2 inches of rainfall, it's whole heap of rainfall. So when we talk about 15 to 25, this is much more than, oh, that's somebody else's phone, I assume. Right, this is much more than you can even imagine to experience. This is a major rain-producing event. It is considered to be producing catastrophic flooding. In some cases, they say life-threatening. We have already heard about some lives being lost in Haiti, and this is because of this system. So we must take every precaution when it comes to the rainfall. If you are in any area that is flood-prone, a low-lying area, you must find a way to build a relationship with somebody that will help you to move from that area, or move to those shelters as soon as they are open and make sure that you are able to ride out this whole system. Now, it's going to be here for a long time. This system, as I said from the earlier picture, lots of rainfall, and it will be with us for a good 5 days or so. Heavy rainfall, increasing wind speeds. We are expecting that storm force winds. I believe there is another image that I could probably show if I got it in, probably not. But it shows that these tropical storm force winds are expected to start being experienced in eastern parts of the island by this evening. And then as we go through tomorrow, those storm force winds will continue right across the country. We expect that we will experience the hurricane force winds starting to impact the island on Monday morning. It's likely that it will be Monday morning. So we are going to go through almost 48 hours of storm force winds affecting sections of the island before the hurricane force winds actually begin to impact us. And that is expected to continue right through Monday, right through Tuesday, right through Wednesday. And then we could be starting to experience some weakening in terms of the wind speeds. But hurricanes have a way, even if the center has moved away from you, the impact of the system usually continues for another 2 days. So expect that throughout next week, we will be impacted by this system. It will be very difficult to move around. It will not be, even after the system has basically said that it is moving away. I had a discussion with representatives from the National Hurricane Center in the US just before I came here. And they were saying that the kind of rainfall that we're experiencing, that we will be experiencing, is going to prevent us from actually even doing some of the usual activities immediately after the system center moves off the island. We're going to be prevented because of blocked roads, because of landslides, because of the amount of water that remains over the country, that it's going to be very difficult to move around, assuming that all of this pans out the way that is being projected at this time. So it will be a major hurricane. What is projected right now is that it will be a Category 4 hurricane that makes impact on the island. It will likely decrease as it moves toward the north coast, but a Category 4 hurricane is more than we have experienced before moving across the island. Gilbert was a Category 3 hurricane when it moved over Jamaica. It became Category 4 when it was heading to the Cayman Islands. Ivan was a Category 4 hurricane, yes, but the center did not pass over the island. Beryl was also a Category 4 hurricane, but it also did not impact us with a landfall. It was a direct hit because we've got the heavy rainfall and the associated weather, but it did not move over the island in terms of the center of the system. We have not had this experience before, so it's important for us to consider this as an extraordinary situation. As you can see, the center is expected to move off the island later on Tuesday, but the conditions are expected to linger even as the situation, as the center or as the hurricane itself starts to move even over eastern Cuba. We will continue to experience spiral bands from the system moving across the island. Those can produce more torrential rainfall. Lots more of the flooding is likely to take place even after the eye of the system has moved off the country. So those are the images that I wanted to share with you at this time. There is also the concern of storm surge. This is something that is often overlooked, but we will recall that back in the time of, in 2004, with Hurricane Ivan, we had storm surge that completely demolished an entire community, Caribbean Terrace in St. Andrew, near to the Palisados area. But that community no longer exists in the way that it used to because of storm surge. We would also know that with Ivan and with Dean in 2007, and even with Beryl, we had significant storm surge on the southern coastline in Rocky Point, in Portland Cottage of Clarendon, and there are other areas on the south coast that also were affected by storm surge. Now, storm surge is also a flooding event, but it is not the flooding from the rainfall. It is flooding that comes in with the waters of the sea. With these tremendous winds that a Category 4 hurricane could produce, that will push the water onto the shoreline from the water of the sea onto the shoreline. And with it pulling back into the sea, it takes even houses and communities possibly back into the sea along with it. So if you are living anywhere near a coastline, it is important that you pay attention to the fact that storm surge is a real potential. What will make a difference in terms of how badly you're affected by the storm surge is where exactly the center makes landfall. On the right side, or the eastern side of that center, the storm surge will be at its maximum. So if the center of the system passes over western Clarendon, for example, along the coast, the eastern part of Clarendon will experience significant storm surge. And this could be up to like 8 feet or maybe more. So we will give you more details later in our later bulletins of the height of the storm surge. We'll try to see if we can also produce some maps that will indicate how far inland the storm surge will impact, so that those persons who are some distance from the coastline but still in the low-lying area would also have an idea of what to expect. Of course, that's where we are concerned with places, even in the St. Andrew, Kingston area, even coastal St. Catherine, that could be affected by storm surge. Port Royal comes to mind, and there are also communities associated with Portmore as you move toward the coast as well that would be at risk from storm surge because of this system. As I said, it is what is called a catastrophic hurricane. That is what is expected to not only pass the island, but move directly over the island. I'm sure there will be some questions afterwards, but that's the information. Yes.
I'm going to keep you here, which is not usually the way we do things, usually wait until the end. But you gave a very important update, and it is extremely, extremely frightening. And so we want to take some questions. I know that we have one question already. Can I get the microphone so that we can get that question answered? So you're saying today we're going to feel rain. There's going to be rain.
Yes, we will start to experience some rain today, but tomorrow throughout the day is when we expect that the rain will increase. And so today is really the last day to do what you have to do on the outside. Right. Don't expect to do anything tomorrow or any time between now and next week, Friday.
Okay. All right, let's take the first question. Thank you, Cheryl, for subbing today.
Thanks, Cheryl. Mr. Thompson, Arthur from the Jamaicans there.
Yes.
Quick check. You keep saying the eastern side, the western side will have rain. My granny, Trinityville, or my friend in Moko wants to know which communities should start expecting rains, and where should we tell people move, evacuate? That's what we want to share, not just Eastern and Western. Which communities should we say move now?
All right. As the system, thank you, Arthur, for the question. As the system moves closer and closer to the island, we will start to experience the heavy rainfall. Mainly, I would start by saying in eastern parts of the island, but then I'll continue by saying parts of St. Thomas. I won't be able to name communities, but as we move across St. Thomas, Portland, the Kingston and St. Andrew area, that's where the rainfall is going to start. As it progresses, then we'll start to see St. Mary being included. All the communities in St. Mary will be moving over to St. Catherine, moving over to Clarendon and Manchester, and in the north to some extent St. Anne. But because the system is going to be approaching more from the southern side, below the country, if you're looking at the map, we're going to experience more of the rainfall at that point. As we go through Sunday and into Monday, the rainfall will become heaviest mainly St. Thomas, Kingston, St. Andrew, St. Catherine, Clarendon, Manchester, going across into St. Elizabeth and eventually Westmoreland to a lesser extent, slightly lesser extent. But as I mentioned before, we're talking about amounts of rainfall that you have not been accustomed to experiencing. And the other parts of the island will also get significant rainfall. Our bulletin had indicated that western parts of the island will also experience significant rainfall, which is also unusual, but most of it will occur over those parishes that were named. Parts of Trelawney, St. James, and Hanover will probably be a little bit less impacted, but let's not take that as comfort, because it will still be more rainfall than you bargained for.
All right. And there'll be
surges now, the coastline areas?
Coastal areas.
Coastal areas. In terms of the storm surge, for the storm surge coastal areas, we are expecting that parts of Clarendon, St. Catherine, Kingston, St. Andrew, and St. Thomas will be most impacted by the storm surge. So the coastal areas of those parishes should be really watching. I understand that our fishermen have for the most part moved in. People are commenting that they're seeing all the fishers coming in, and I take that as a good sign. Hopefully they are securing their vessels and making sure that they would be able to ride out the storm at home.
All right, thank you very much. Was there any other question we had at this point for Evan? Okay, here we are, Nationwide.
Yes.
Morning, Mr. Thompson. Morning, everybody. Mahiri Stewart, Nationwide News. I've heard a lot of warnings being given to persons that are in low-lying areas, but are persons in high areas also at risk? And if so, what should they do?
Of course. Thank you for your question, Mahiri. The hazards impact different areas in different ways. But if you are living in a hilly area, there is the landslide hazard that is a real possibility. Is an eventuality. It is going to occur. We're going to have landslides, and some areas are well known for land slippages. Others might not be as well known, but because the soil is already basically saturated, and with the extent of rainfall expected, we're going to have more communities along hill slopes, steep hill slopes, that will be impacted by landslides. The matter of the wind is usually increased over hills. If you are living on a hillside or on a mountains, it's lovely views from there, but it also puts you at increased risk for wind damage. And that is because there is a resultant flow. Apart from the impact of the winds from the hurricane directly, there is the resultant flow in that what hits the ground also rises up the mountains and the hills. So you have that both things coming together and adding to the extent of the wind speeds that are experienced over slopes. That will be mostly on the slopes toward the south side of the island as the system progresses, because you will have more of the wind coming onto the coast from the south.
Right, so is it safe to then say that there's no quote-unquote ideal area to be in, given the fact that all areas seem to be affected in some way by the system?
Unfortunately, you are correct with that. There's nowhere that will escape the wrath of this hurricane. The impact may be somewhat lesser for the northwestern part of the island that would include Hanover, St. James, and Trelawney. Possibly the impact is going to be less and maybe a part of the west, at least the western part of St. Anne. But otherwise, it's going to be more. So they will still experience quite a number of these hazards affecting their area, but it may not be as much as those in St. Thomas, for example.
All right. One more question? Sure, that's fine.
Minister, just got one from one of our listeners who says, when you say 15 to 25 inches...
Stand up, please.
Oh, stand up.
They want to see your face on camera.
Evan, when you said 15 to 25 inches of rain, should that mean for the farmer in Mavis Bank or the person in Arborview? What does 15 to 25 inches of rain mean?
I wish I could even describe it because we don't normally get that kind of rainfall. But if you have experienced any of our major rainfall producers in the past, this is going to be more. You would recall when Hurricane Wilma was developing in 2005, some of us will recall, Hurricane Wilma developed off the southwestern coast of Jamaica in October as well. And while that was developing, there was so much rainfall over the island that there was widespread, extensive flooding over all parishes. That is, we are expecting more than Wilma. If you are thinking also of, there was Nicole that moved over. It did not make landfall over Jamaica either. It was east of the island, but the rainfall that it was experienced across Jamaica was again significant. And if anyone can remember that event, that is also a good marker, but it is going to be more. We haven't seen this kind of... We have to bear in mind also, I should point out that with the slow movement of the system, it doesn't allow you to recover. It's not like it's going to just move off and then gradually the water runs off. It's going to sit there pouring water while it's barely moving. And that is a significant challenge that we have to be aware of. It's going to cause significant, widespread, catastrophic, life-threatening floods, as long as what is predicted does take place. There's a small window of a change in a track, but even in my discussion with the Hurricane Center this morning, they said that window is closing because it is getting a little bit closer and all the models are becoming more in agreement with where the system will go.
All right. Any more questions? So any last words, Evan, to Jamaica? There are a lot of anxious Jamaicans who are just worried about what's going to happen. What would you say to them on Saturday morning at 11:05 a.m.?
I would say if there are some things that are not yet in place, that must be in place. You might have to brave the crowds because there are going to be crowds wherever you need to go. You might have to brave it if you need something. Let's not take advantage of getting much more than you will need. But consider your brothers and your sisters as well. There is somebody else who will not be able to go. There's somebody else who will be in need, and you might have to provide that kind of assistance to them, even now as we prepare. Today is your last day to prepare for this hurricane. If you have not done anything yet, don't think that you will be able to go out tomorrow and it will be easy to go and get things done, because that might not actually be a reality. You have to do what you can now. But I don't want you to think there is no hope, because I still believe that we can trust that things will not be as bad as I am making it sound to you, by at least preparing yourself, yes, but at the same time believing that you will ride this through. You will get over it, and tomorrow, metaphorically tomorrow, it will really be next week, the sun will shine again and you will be okay. Just take care, take the precautions that are necessary, and do it now.
All right, thank you very much, Evan. Just reminding everyone that what Evan said, finish all your prep today. You won't have a chance to do it after today. And you're gonna start feeling the tropical storm, winds and the rain is coming from today. He also said something, which was that we must expect more rainfall than we've gotten from any of the other systems we can remember. So we have to take this very, very seriously. And Evan, we are so grateful to have you in the government service, and you will continue. I'm assuring you that we'll continue to hear from Evan. He will come on periodically. If we can't do the briefings in this room, we will find a way to get the information to you nevertheless. Thank you, Evan.
You're welcome.
Up next, we have Minister Matthew Samuda, our Minister of Water, Environment and Climate Change. Minister, morning.
Thank you, Minister Dixon. Colleague ministers, heads of agency, permanent secretaries, members of the media, Jamaicans all. We started the very first press briefing, Minister Dixon, by saying that it was not time to panic, but time to prepare. Well, Jamaicans, it's still not time to panic, but the time for preparation is running out. From that perspective, I want to not thank Evan for his words, but thank him for the hours that he and his team have been putting in, certainly over the last 2 or so weeks, in monitoring this critical weather system. The Met Service is operating 24 hours a day, as it always does, but operating at full throttle to ensure that the information that we all need to prepare and to plan is indeed made available. But to Mr. Hall from the Observer's question, let us not have anyone in Jamaica in any corner think that they will escape effect. Let us be clear with every Jamaican that this is a large, slow-moving, dangerous storm, and that it is in your interest to A, listen to reputable news sources, B, ignore sources that are proven to be misinformation on a regular basis, and to tune to those sources that we have told you about before, so that you have the accurate information in a timely fashion that allows you to plan and take the appropriate action. These sources, as we have said, Minister Dixon, are the JIS through the Ministry of Education and Information, certainly the Ministry of Local Government and ODPEM, the Met Services channels, the Prime Minister's channels, the Office of the Prime Minister's channels, the Ministry of Water, Environment and Climate Change channels. Stick to official government sources and reputable media houses for your briefings and for your updates as to the state of the storm, because it is a slow-moving, very wet, very dangerous storm, and we all know the areas that are affected by flood, by land slippage, and certainly that are affected because of being marooned when they are cut off because of trees falling. So stick to the reputable sources. Beyond that, I want to update the country that NWC's emergency protocols are now all in place. We have taken an additional step from the updates which were provided yesterday. We have moved to secure power supply additionally for our loading bays, for our trucking services. We have also moved to secure accommodation very close to our loading bays for the officers who will be needed to be in place so that trucks can immediately start to move once we have the all clear from ODPEM to start distributing water, even while we turn on additional systems. Now, as we have said in the past, priority is given to hospitals, infirmaries, and indeed places of detention, and of course places of safety for our children, because that is where they are unable to help themselves in a particular way. But we can assure you that what we have updated is indeed in place. The steps we have taken for power supply, we believe, make us more resilient, certainly than we were a year ago, and we will continue to build on that resilience. But now is the time, as we believe we're wrapping up our preparations for the event. As everyone has said, we expect to start experiencing storm conditions this evening. Sometime tomorrow, we will close off our intakes so that we reduce siltation in our reservoirs and major storage areas, so that we're able to restart the systems as soon as our energy supply turns on, either the temporary energy supply or JPS. This is a serious storm, but we are working with our international partners, certainly through the National Hurricane Center, who coordinate their information through the Met Service to give you the information that you need. We can confirm that we're working with all of our local partners also to make sure that we're able to respond to need for urgent water supply immediately after the storm, Minister Dixon. So with that, I will take my leave and head out.
Thank you. You can't go yet. We have a meeting after this. Up next, we have a very important update from a very important minister, Minister Green. And agriculture is the backbone of this country. And as you heard from Evan in terms of the amount of rainfall that we are expecting, there is a threat there, and also our fisher folk have been listening to you, Minister, and we thank you for your guidance. We see you out there doing the work. We see you all over St. Elizabeth and also briefing farmers. And so this morning we get to hear from Minister Floyd Green on his efforts and the efforts of his ministry. Minister.
Thank you very much, Minister Dixon, colleague, ministers, people of Jamaica. Good morning. The Ministry of Agriculture, Fisheries and Mining has activated its emergency protocols and has convened its disaster management and mitigation committee. Our first phase has been to issue various advisories to our farmers and fishers around what to do in the event of this storm. Clearly, we now see that as the week has gone on, the storm has strengthened, and it appears based on the forecast, we are certain to get significant rain and significant wind. As such, we've been saying to our different types of farmers to take necessary precautions. Firstly, for them to be out there harvesting if they can. We have been working with a number of our farmers, our fruit farmers, our pepper farmers, to harvest what they have, to work with our agro-processes to provide those items so that they can minimize their losses. Additionally, we've been saying to our livestock farmers to ensure that they have sufficient feed for their animals, ensure that they have sufficient clean water for their animals. If the animals are in a flood-prone area, move them to higher ground. It is very, very important that they act now, especially in relation to preparing silage so that the animals will have feed during the storm. We've sent out advisories, and our RADA teams have been out in the ground. Literally, our extension officers have been visiting with farmers, saying to them, put these precautions in place. Clear your drains so that you can have the free flow of water. If you're banana and planting farmers, please get rid of the overhanging trees, prop up your plants, store your chemicals in a dry place. We know with a lot of rain comes the onset of fungus. You need to have your fungicides, store them so that when it is clear, and this is a very important part, we don't want anybody to be trying to venture out in the weather event to try to save their crops and animals. Oftentimes that causes loss of life. So make these preparations now. Put your chemicals in a safe space so that when it is clear, you can get out there and you can get back to what we love to do. Additionally, we saw a lot of damage to our greenhouse farmers in Hurricane Beryl. In fact, about 232 greenhouse structures were destroyed by Hurricane Beryl. A number of those farmers have not fully rebuilt as yet, are in the process of rebuilding. We've had a number of interventions to get those farmers back on their feet. We're asking them to follow the protocols. In fact, we have been literally calling our greenhouse farmers through RADA to say to them, ensure that you strip your greenhouses, take off the plastic so that the wind can pass through. Originally, we were just talking about rain. But as we have seen, based on the trajectory of the storm, which will likely become a hurricane, then we're going to have significant wind. So we're asking our farmers to follow the protocol. So the RADA team is out. Also, our Agro-Invest Corporation has been working with our agri-parks, looking at critical drains, trying to clean those drains so that we can reduce the impact of flooding. As such, the Sugar Company of Jamaica as well has been undertaking that, has been directed to undertake those works. In relation to our fishers, our message has been very, very clear. Come home. Secure your boats and secure your engines and do not venture out during this weather system. I must say that we've had very, very good uptake of our advisories from our fishers. A number of them have made their ways from the Keys. A number of them have come back in, have pulled in their boats, and our extension officers from the Fisheries Authority are out checking, making final checks to help those fishers be ready for the inevitable that will come. Part of what we're doing now is to transition into looking at crafting our recovery. It is very, very clear that we will have significant negative impact on our agricultural sector. We have been having a very good year for agriculture. You know, our farmers showed tremendous resilience after Hurricane Beryl, leading us to what will be 3 quarters of significant growth in our agricultural sector. Unfortunately, Melissa is coming at a time that most farmers would have been capitalizing on the normal October rains to put in their crops to be ready for December, for the Christmas period. And as such, there is a lot at risk on the agricultural side. So we've already started to craft a disaster recovery plan. Clearly, that will be finalized depending on the extent of the damage, but already we have forward procured vegetable seeds because we do know that our vegetable crops are more susceptible to these weather-related events. So we already have in stock through our RADA offices some vegetable seeds so that we will be able to get out as quickly as possible. We've also secured some chemicals that we know will be important to distribute to our farmers after the weather event. We've also been engaging our partners, and I really want to thank the ones that have reached out extremely early. We've already had a meeting with our CARICOM counterparts around support that they plan to provide. We've already had an outreach from the FAO and from ECA in relation to indicating that they stand ready to assist Jamaica in relation to its recovery effort on the agriculture and fisheries side. So with all of that said, I will close by saying to our farmers and our fishers, please heed the warnings from the Met Office, follow the advisories that we will be issuing from RADA, from the National Fisheries Authority. Make your final preparations now. The government will be there to help you get through after all of this is passed. We have shown that with Hurricane Beryl that we are nimble enough to get to you quickly so that we can rebound in a robust fashion. Once there is life, there is hope. So please take the time to protect your life, and we will help you protect your livelihoods. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister Green, for that. He's going to do everything he can to help our farmers, and I know that. We did that in Beryl. You did an excellent job there, and I know that you'll continue to do that. Up next, we do have Minister McKenzie, who is the lead minister in terms of a lot of this prep. He's the deputy chair of the National Disaster Risk Management Council, and he has oversight of ODPEM and other key agencies, and so he will come and give his update to you this morning. Minister McKenzie.
Thank you, Minister. First of all, let me commend you on the excellent job that you have been doing since we started this series of press briefing, and to my colleague cabinet ministers, especially Minister Samuda, for carrying most of my areas over the last couple of days. And one of those days got you into some problems, but you were good enough to get out of it. Today is a day that many of us is contemplating as to what the outcome starting today will be. I want to start off by saying that Jamaica is in the top 5 most disastrous countries in the world. We sit in the middle of the earthquake fault line, and we are exposed to natural disasters. The pending impact of Melissa is not something that as a country we should take lightly. And even yesterday, engaging with some fellow Jamaicans, their argument is that we are a God-blessed country and we are gifted and the system will pass. Well, the Bible also reminds us that God helps those who help themselves. And I believe that we are at a point now where the government, the Ministry of Local Government, through the Office of Disaster Preparedness and Emergency Management, will have to take the necessary steps to ensure that we put in place the systems which exist that gives us the powers under the Disaster Act to ensure that Jamaicans comply and Jamaicans do what is necessary. Later on this afternoon, I'll be meeting with all the mayors. And one of the areas of concerns that has been brought to my attention, and I did a few surveys across the corporate here this morning, that there are several major construction sites that still has materials, sand, gravel, steel, and in some cases, cranes still hanging in the air. We're going to make a general appeal this morning to all construction sites, not just only in the corporate area, but right across the country, that they must start to take the necessary steps to remove cranes, steels, sand, blocks, which will only contribute more to the blocking of our drains and can have devastating effects on individuals, people's property, and can result in extreme damage. Billboards should be taken down. And this is the work of the municipal corporations. So I'm saying that all billboards should be taken down at this time and put in a safe place. You still have used car operators who continue to use the public thoroughfare to display their vehicles, park them overnight, just to advise that a team of wreck operators is presently combing the streets of the corporate area, and where we find these vehicles, we are going to remove them and take them to the Riverton City dump. We cannot afford to create human missiles that will hurt persons during this period. I am asking for the cooperation of those persons that I have just outlined a while ago. There has been some controversy coming from the opposition as it relates to the funds that they are claiming that they have not gotten to spend. And I want to spend a couple of minutes on it because I don't want the country to believe that this administration or myself as the minister in any way is playing politics with emergency. The municipal corporations, by law, is required to hold a percentage of the parochial revenue funds that they have. And the purpose of that is to respond to emergencies. Those funds should not be spent unless an emergency such as the one we are experiencing now is happening. And they are required to seek the permission of the ministry to spend those funds, because previously, before, that funds were used to do other things outside of emergencies. And in fairness to some of the MCs, they have been using the SGR, and they have said it publicly in response to the call. Some have not, because they have exhausted the SGR on other issues that are not emergency related. And they are therefore looking to the Ministry of Local Government to supplement what they have used outside of what is required. Funds have been earmarked. They were advised that they could use 2 months of the parochial revenue funds for drain cleaning. And I want the country to understand that the municipal corporations generate their own source of revenues that they can spend at their own ledger, that the ministry has nothing to do with. So the municipal corporations can find funds to do the work that is necessary. And I note that the opposition have mentioned that based on the survey that they did, all of the municipalities have said that they are not in a position for us to welcome Prime Minister. And I note that it is said that some of the municipalities are not in a position to do it. All of them, the release said. But at least 5 municipalities that are controlled by the opposition has come out publicly to say that they have undertaken drain cleaning exercise and they are in a state of readiness. I want to say to the country this morning that this administration takes seriously the question of our preparedness for disaster, and we will work across the board to ensure that we provide quality service to the people and to ensure that the people's business is taken care of. So let me repeat again that the municipal corporations are in a position. There are 13 levels of fees that they are collecting, that they have control over those 13 layers of fees. The only ones that is controlled by government in terms of the Ministry of Finance is the PRF, which is a proceeds of the revenues from motor vehicle licensing and fees, which we get 66 1/3%. And on submission of your program, the funds are released, and the determination of the amount that the MCs get is not determined by the Ministry of Local Government. It comes directly from tax office. They get property taxes. They get trade license, which are a significant amount of revenues. So they are in a position to do what is necessary. I'd like to therefore now touch on two critical areas of our preparedness as we get deeper into the hurricane. Already, I would have written to the Most Honorable Prime Minister on the advice of the Director General of ODPEM under the Disaster Risk Management Act to make a declaration which the Prime Minister did yesterday. Jamaicans, there is another request I'll be putting in writing to the Prime Minister for his consideration. That based on the extent of the system, there are vulnerable communities in Jamaica that it is advisable that persons do not remain in these communities during the passage of the hurricane. Provisions are made in the Disaster Risk Management Act for compulsory evacuation. Places like Rocky Point in Clarendon, Taylor Land in Bull Bay, New Haven, Riverton City, and many other communities that will be affected, where lives will be threatened. I will therefore be writing to the Prime Minister based on the recommendations of the Acting Director General of ODPEM that we take those steps to advise those communities of the intent to declare this order. But I want to make an appeal to persons who are living in these communities. Port Royal is one such community that is of concern, that you can start to make arrangements to move and go and spend time with relatives and friends. It is in your interest that this is done. And I want to say this, and I have to speak, Prime Minister, because this is how I am. It is going to be impossible when the event comes, after all the efforts that you would have made, to say to our first respondent, go to point A and point B, to put their lives at risk when persons refuse to move before. And I want to urge Jamaicans, do not take this for granted. We have already removed the residents of 3 infirmaries that sits on the mouth of the river of the sea in St. Anne, Hanover, and Trelawney. Those residents have been removed to safe grounds, and we are presently removing the homeless population from the streets and placing them in shelters right across the country. The Ministry of Local Government and ODPEM is in a position, Prime Minister, to provide relief supplies when necessary, Prime Minister. We have a team here in Jamaica from Sedema, which came in over the last 2 days, which is helping us in our communication system and is here to give support to the team on the ground. The government is doing all that it can within its powers, but the greater effort has to come from the people themselves. And I want to use my presentation this morning to urge Jamaicans to take this seriously. Do not gamble with Melissa. It's not a safe bet. I urge Jamaicans to think about themselves first. I hope and pray that God will grant us the strength and the courage, and that He will smile on us and be gracious to us over the next couple of days. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Minister. Now we're going to be hearing from our Prime Minister, Dr. the Most Honorable Andrew Holness. Thank you, PM.
Thank you, Minister. Good morning, Jamaicans here and overseas who may be watching this press briefing. Firstly, a few comments on the system itself. The system is quite an unusual one, sitting in the Caribbean Sea for such a long time, making up its mind where it will go. It is obvious that it now has a trajectory where we can, with great certainty, say that Jamaica will be impacted. Let me be clear that the entire Jamaica will be impacted by this storm. The outer bands seem to be very wide, and it is already affecting the Dominican Republic and Haiti with significant rainfall. We should expect the same. So the first impact that we should be preparing for would be heavy rains. Once it becomes a major hurricane, which is projected to be within a day, then we will have heavy winds. The third impact will be the length of time that it will stay. If it continues to be as slow moving as it has been, then we could expect anywhere from 2 to 3 days. Would that be correct, Evan? Or even longer. So those are the three things you should be, in your mind, be prepared for. Now, I know that there are many Jamaicans who are anxious, who are very concerned, and rightfully so. You should be concerned. But the best way to address anxiety and any nervousness and concern is to be prepared. So I would urge all my fellow citizens, everyone who is now feeling nervous, anxious, uncertain, that now is the time to be prepared. And the elements of preparedness for a hurricane would be, first of all, you want to protect your shelter. That's absolutely critical, because in a hurricane, you would need to be somewhere where you can be sheltered. Roofs, windows, start there. Battening down. So I noticed that many Jamaicans are putting building blocks on their zinc and so forth. That is a solution, but a better option would be to use sandbags, which stay longer and are not likely to be blown off. If you can find plywood or anything of that form to protect your windows, that would be useful. We always say to remove threatening branches from trees. We have seen one incident where someone was injured trying to do that, so we advise that if you're doing that, be super careful in doing that. The next layer of preparation would be to look for areas that are vulnerable to flooding. If you find that your yard is below road level or in a water zone, meaning you have built in a river course, you're on a slope, you're near to the sea, you're in a low-lying area, you're close to or on a gully bank, or historically, you are in an area where the river may change course. You want to take protective measures. And again, simple sandbagging can be useful in directing water away from your shelter. Once you have sorted out your shelter issues, then you have to look for sustenance, food and water. Make sure that you have food that is non-perishable and water that is in proper containers, scaled to the number of persons who live in your household. Then you want to look for ensuring that you have at least some form of lighting, because it is highly likely that the electricity will go either preemptively or as a result of the storm itself. Batteries and flashlights are recommended. The good old home sweet home lamp is always there, but we're always very careful, last resort. Batteries and flashlights, today's technology with LED lights, you can have lights going for a little while in the night. Solar lamps are always good to have. These are things that you would want to have in your possession. Of course, in today's world, telecommunications is important. Make sure you have at least some credit if you use prepaid plans, that you keep your devices safe. And we can't give you any guarantee that throughout the storm you will have full coverage. It is likely that you may have some coverage at some point, but you should always, in your hurricane plan, be prepared that you may be out of communication. But nevertheless, keep your instruments safe. Don't let them get wet, so that at least if the signals were to come back, you'll be able to connect. Now, having done all of that, there is another important thing which we ask you to do. Keep your documents safe. Now, your identification, your passport, any prescriptions that you may need to be refilled, your land titles and all of those things, keep them safe. Keep them in a safe place. Yes, there would be distribution of benefits without the need for identification, but that would be very limited. In fact, in the humanitarian relief and recovery phase, I would say that most, if not all, the distribution of benefits will require some form of identification because of the accountability issues that, even though it's a hurricane, we can't suspend accountability. So keep your identification safe. There are some other things that we would want you to do in being prepared. Speak with your children about the hurricane, because they are going through their own uncertainty crises, which you may not immediately recognize. They may not take it seriously. Some may think of it as fun, and they may run outside and run in the rain playing football, and accidents can happen. We urge you to have a frank discussion about what to expect in a hurricane and why it is important to stay sheltered during the hurricane. We don't want to have any deaths during the hurricane. And an important part of that is to keep your household inside safe. Outside of that, communities are an important response tool to the hurricane. I remember during Gilbert, the community in which I live, everyone came together. And that helped to keep the community safe. It helped to deal with emergencies, and just good old sitting down, talking, dealing with the challenges that would have occurred. In today's parlance, we say it helps with the mental health. So community is important. Looking on your neighbor, reach out to your neighbor, find out what is happening, ask how you can help, or ask for help. Very important. Outside of that, there is the local government response. And Minister McKenzie would have addressed this issue of what the local government is tasked and resourced to do. And then there is the national response. Now, I know that at this time, there are many persons who simply have no resources at all. They are not able to go to the supermarket and buy even one bag of crackers. I am aware. And we have tasked the Ministry of Social Security to start to pre-position supplies, but in all reality, we wouldn't be able to get supplies to everyone who is genuinely in need of the supplies. The most immediate first responder is usually, it's either your church or your member of parliament or your councillor, the police. So we are going to make provisions for the councillors and the members of parliament to be able to, where they can, because they are humans too and they wouldn't be able to be out in this storm, but as much as they can, we will resource them to be able to assist. They will, and I'll be clear with this, they will not be able to assist every case. It's just physically not possible. But in as much as cases are brought to their attention, their network of workers and community activists and so forth would have brought cases to their attention, then we can assist. We are very grateful and very thankful for the philanthropic organizations that exist in certain communities that are already starting to mobilize and doing work. We intend to reach out to most and cooperate with them and assist them in being able to get supplies and distribute. Which leads me to another point of preparedness nationally. And that at this time, there must be a unified position with all the civic stakeholders and all our political stakeholders. And so I have been in communication with the leader of the opposition. We should meet today at, I believe, 12:30, and I will give the opposition a full brief. I'm certain that they will have suggestions which we will listen to and take on board. And if determined, then we will have a Zoom call with members of parliament. I know many of them are in the field, so it depends on how many that we would be able to mobilize. But we have already provisioned them with resources to clean drains and gullies. I know many of them are out in the field supervising these works. From being a member of parliament myself and having gone through this many, many times over, your constituents are of the belief that every drain and every gully is going to be cleaned. That may not be possible. Certainly, you would need much more equipment mobilized than we have capabilities to do, much more supervision. And so what the MPs would be doing would be trying to concentrate on the main ones. That is where their efforts would be. So if you didn't see the drain running behind your yard being cleaned, don't believe that no work is happening. Work is happening, but it may not be in your locality. That is being monitored by the NWA, and we will get a report very soon as to how many drains we were able to clean. That is indeed a very important preemptive action when it comes to treating with flooding. So outside of that, from an administrative point of view, all our entities have been tasked and mobilized. I suspect all the officers understand what the mission is. It is, from all indications, it is going to be a direct hit, and all of Jamaica will be impacted. I urge everyone to be wise about this, to put aside the nervousness and the anxiety, and be practical, prepare, as I have outlined, how we should be prepared, and continue to pray. We have seen hurricanes at the last moment take a turn for the better. And I still have hope that the impact will not be as bad as it is shaping up to be. But we will prepare for the worst and continue to pray for the best. The impact, whatever it is, the preparation can have some mitigating effect on the impact, but the real work starts the hour after the impact. And what we have done in terms of national preparedness is to put everything in place to be able to respond the hour after the impact. And that is how quickly we intend to recover from this hurricane. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you.
Okay, thank you, everyone. You would have heard earlier from Minister Vaz. You also heard from Minister McKenzie, Minister Green, and also Minister Samuda. If you have any questions, and Prime Minister just closed out, and I see the Observer has the first question.
Good morning. Good morning, still Prime Minister. A quick one for you. You speak about the recovery. In your administration had started a cat bond with the World Bank with about US $150 million. Not sure if Hurricane Beryl triggered that catastrophe bond, and is it still in place?
Still in place.
Still in place.
Melissa. Still in place, yes.
And how will we trigger it, PM?
No, I hope it's not triggered. As I stand here, I don't want it to be triggered.
What triggers it?
Yeah. It is dependent on the level of damage. And I think it's also dependent on the wind, the wind category. Mm-hmm. So we're hopeful that we don't have significant winds, which would translate to not having significant damage.
All right. Nationwide.
Morning, Prime Minister. Morning to the room again. Given, we spoke with Evan Thompson earlier, he was telling us that different places are at different risks based on their characteristics. Persons in hilly areas might be susceptible to landslides, those in the coast might be susceptible to flooding. Given that we have MPs in here, the question to all the MPs would be, based on the characteristics of your constituency, are there any special warnings you want to give to the constituents in terms of areas that may be susceptible to a different type of damage compared to somewhere else? Are there any specific instructions?
Yeah, I mean, so I don't want to call out areas. I usually leave that to the technical persons because I don't know all the areas. But let's take Port Royal, for example. So Port Royal is a low-lying area. Just the nature of that peninsula would leave it vulnerable. And we ask the persons there to take precautions. I would have come in at the tail end of the presentation of Minister McKenzie. And I can understand the reluctance of persons who are attached to that community and attached to the land. They don't want to be displaced, and they want to be able to protect their assets. But my advice to them, because it's no advice, I'm awaiting the minister's recommendation for it to become a compulsory order to relocate, to evacuate. I would advise them to, if they don't want to go to a shelter, because a shelter would be open, and I believe the shelter, Minister McKenzie, would be the arena and Windward Road Primary. I would recommend that they make contact with family and make arrangements to stay with family. And that's one area. The other area would be Rocky Point and the general Portland Cottage area. Those areas have historically flooded, even in Beryl. I know the residents there are quite resourceful, and I've seen some do the sandbanking, channeling, and all kinds of other measures. But given not just the severity in terms of the projected wind and rain, but this other dimension of the length of time that it will stay. If it stays very long, then even your best measures could be thwarted by just the duration of rainfall and wind. So I urge every Jamaican who are residing in these vulnerable areas to make plans to evacuate. Now, the compulsory evacuation comes with the provision of transportation. We won't be able to do it in all cases, but in most cases, I would say 90% of the cases, we will provide transportation to move you to safe ground. Outside of that, because the provision of transportation would be halted at a particular point in time, because that would be putting our drivers and buses and other persons in harm's way. After that, we would not be able to guarantee a response until after the hurricane. And so I'm just putting it very frankly that if you decide to violate an order to evacuate, you are essentially taking a risk with your life.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? None? All right. Thank you. Thank you, Prime Minister.
Thank you.
And thank you, everyone. And I think Minister McKenzie just wanted to say something.
Prime Minister, one of the things that we picked up in a survey that we did is the question of mental health and people under stress. So to advise the public that there will be a medical team within the command center that will be able to respond to calls from individuals who are showing signs and expressing certain kind of tendencies during what is going to be anticipated to be a very, very difficult period, and that will be put in place, and we will make those numbers known shortly before the end of the day.
All right, thank you very much. That's a very good point, and Minister Green wants to make one final point too.
Just to indicate that we will be closing all our botanical gardens. The botanical gardens do fall under the Ministry of Agriculture, so as of tomorrow, all our botanical gardens will be closed until further notice.
All right. Thank you very much, Minister Green. So again, this is our 4th day of doing daily press briefings. We believe it's very important that we keep the nation apprised of everything that's going on. We have to be apprised of everything, and our ministers are working really hard. You see them here. They're in their constituencies also. They're dealing with their ministerial duties. Our Prime Minister has said that we are all on call, and we will continue to keep you updated with the latest information. Evan did a fantastic job this morning, and you were able to ask a lot of questions. We got some of the questions in from the media that were also online, and it is a dire situation, but we continue to pray. And as an administration, we commit to you that we'll continue to keep you informed. So please pay attention to reliable sources. And I want to thank the members of the media. I want to thank all of the media houses for playing these press conferences live so that Jamaicans can have access to it. We will continue to provide information. It may not be in this form. We may have to go online and do some updates online. Evan will be doing that throughout the day. Today we'll be doing that through the weekend and into early next week. There will not be an information vacuum from the administration. And now PM has something else he would love to say.
Oh no, as you mentioned, information. Jamaicans should be aware that the prediction of the course of the storm is not a precise science. And there are several models, and we take the best of the models plus our own indigenous knowledge of our situation to give the best projection. But as an act of God, we have no control over what nature may decide to do, and it can shift, which is why we need to give you the up-to-date information. So we may have said something yesterday or even an hour ago, but the situation has changed. And so we need to bear that in mind. It's very important that we say this because in the decentralized media world in which we live in, where technically we have citizen journalists and every opinion can be broadcast, the impact of the broadcast of an opinion or information that is not accurate in the time of a disaster can have impactful consequences and can impact the outcome of the efforts. So I'm urging everyone to be, at this time, responsible. Use social media for what it was designed to be, social, not anti-social media. So let's use the media for the positive reassurance. Of course, bring to attention issues that may occur, but don't use it as a means to create depression in the minds of citizens. And many persons going through very difficult times now, as I've said earlier, uncertain times, and we need to be cautious of that. Secondly, I did not recall to mention in my presentation that a part of managing the response to the pandemic is to manage trade and commerce, to ensure that our supermarkets, our shops are properly stocked and that our distributors have stocks in their warehouses. I have been briefed by the Minister of Industry and Commerce that the trades have reported that they have sufficient stock to carry us through the initial phase of the weather event and to carry us even during the relief and recovery phase. One of the challenges we have picked up is that because the hurricane has been not so definitive in when and where, persons may have taken actions that would have seen either the closure of hardwares or supermarkets, and so there are persons who still have not been prepared and are finding it now difficult at the last moment. So I'm going to take this platform. We're not going to be using any of the powers that we could use under the RMA, but we're taking this platform to urge our suppliers and distributors to consider keeping their shops and warehouses and supermarkets open for as long as possible to ensure that our citizens are able to get supplies. I believe that we could do this even up to tomorrow early. Evan?
Yeah, well, actually today is the last day to do that kind of...
Today?
Yes, the rains will start tomorrow,
by tomorrow. So as long as you can keep your of course, we're asking you to use your discretion and judgment in this matter, but I'm still making the appeal for as long as you can to keep your supermarkets, your shops, your corner shops open so that people can get supplies for as long as you can. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Is there another question? No. Okay. All right. Wonderful. Thank you all. And as I said, we'll continue updating you. Please pay attention to GIS, Met Office, ODPEM, the Prime Minister's page. You will be getting information throughout today, throughout the weekend, and into early next week. It is a hurricane. It is not something that is an exact science. So anything can happen. It can turn. And so we have to make sure that we know what is happening. So please keep informed, and we will keep informing you. And as always, as we end today, we pray that God will continue to bless Jamaica land we love. Thank you.